You're with Julian on the Brown Note, and the great obvious secrets about the war in Gaza and the two-state solution, which I did a piece on about a year ago, which is something that the media never cover, even though it's staring us in the face. And it comes in after the ceasefire. This ceasefire in Gaza and the swapping of prisoners and Hamas saying that they're going to pull out of the ceasefire. I would assume if you did do a ceasefire in a war, the opposing party then saying that they were going to eradicate you from that entire country forever would actually negate that ceasefire. And that's specifically what the leader of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, has been saying in his recent Pali visit with Donald Trump in America. Even though America is a signatory, or was, and probably isn't today, to the International Criminal Court, which has an arrest warrant open for Benjamin Netanyahu for being a war criminal, which means that any signatory to the International Criminal Court, any country has an obligation to arrest him on landing. But anyway, we've had this notion pushed by Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu, which is that we're basically going to shove all of the Palestinians out of that land. And Donald Trump's put the caveat of them basically America owning the Gaza Strip and turning it into a Riviera with casinos, because that's his idea. Now, the big secret is that that was always the plan. There was never any, the international community has for decades, including America, laboured under the pretense of a two-state solution in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank, where there's independence and autonomy and a lack of warmongering happening against them. And it was never true. Even though in Australia, they won't say it, and in the entire developed world, we promoted it, Israel never, ever intended to go along with that, especially not under people like Benjamin Netanyahu. And the reason is they can't. And the reason is this, and this is what no one in the media says. In Israel, there's 7.2 million Jewish people, and there's 2 million Palestinians and about 500,000 non-Jewish, non-Palestinian peoples that fall broadly into the same bucket. In the West Bank, there's about 500,000 Jewish people across a lot of areas as the settlers, illegal under international law, and 2.3 million Palestinians. And in the Gaza Strip, there's 2.1 million Palestinians. So what would happen if a lot of people say, well, they're just going to take those areas. They can't actually do that because they would have 7.7 million Jewish people in Israel if they took over the West Bank and Gaza Strip, and 7.1 million Palestinians. They would never elect a Jewish government again. The population in Israel, you only ever hear about the right-wing Jewish population in Australia. We actually shut off a Jewish person in Parliament, I think on Friday or very recently, for offering a different version of events. Half the country hates Benjamin Netanyahu. They are wildly split between left and right factions in Israel. There wouldn't be that same kind of split with Palestinians, who would all vote the same way. So they can't actually allow the people of those Palestinian territories to exist, because they will never vote for a Jewish government in power again. Netanyahu only had about 15% approval rating. They can only form government, and have done for years, by having these coalitions. So the Jewish vote would be massively split, and the Palestinian and Arab vote would not, because they don't have any rights, and they would all vote the same way to get them. With a birth rate of 2.89 Jewish Israelis in Israel, and even in somewhere as war-torn as the Gaza Strip, 3.38 children per woman, it wouldn't take more than a decade or two for them to be outnumbered. They can't actually take over those territories without removing the people. And to do so, they can either deport them, which is ethnic cleansing, kill them, which they can't actually do anymore, or change the entire constitution of Israel into a non-democratic state where no one but Jewish Israelis have any rights. And at this point in time, it appears that removing them entirely, millions of people from the West Bank and Gaza Strip, is the plan. Which again is completely impossible and against every law on the developed world. And there's this nice fluffy plan. Let's rebuild Gaza and house them overseas while it happens. Okay. That's a complete lie. And the other thing is, like, we're couching this in the manner that there are, you know, all of the people in Gaza were forced out of Gaza while this war was happening. Most of them are still there. We're talking about forcing people out that didn't even leave during war. Only a small amount actually left the areas that are Gaza. They saw the attack last year as an opportunity to enact a final solution. And it is a final solution. It's exactly the same as the terminology that Hitler used, which is a final solution of removing a problematic people from your midst. I mean, Biden lost the last election, or the Democrats lost the last election, because an awful lot of progressive Democratic voters and Arab-tied voters sat it out because they couldn't stomach voting for what they saw was a genocidal support by the Democrats for Benjamin Netanyahu. And now he's got everything that he ever wished for, which is Donald Trump and a bunch of Christian Zionists saying, we will actually go along with you removing all these people. Netanyahu has a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity here. He's gone as soon as this war ends. The public of Israel, the Jewish population of Israel, don't want him as leader. They were protesting in their hundreds of thousands against his totalitarian dictatorship rubbish, trying to dismantle the Supreme Court. Probably looking at America and seeing how they've dealt with the Supreme Court over there. But now they've got Trump saying that he's going to, you know, make it into the Riviera. But his government is stacked with Christian Zionists who have the same goal as Netanyahu, which is that the entire country will be Israel, yet they can't have that many Palestinians in Israel. They need them to be removed. The idea that America would own the Gaza Strip is garbage. They'd own it for a few years. And then because they couldn't transfer it directly to Israel, because that would look even worse. So they would, in Trump's head, step in, own it for a while, and then simply hand it to Israel. Because Christian Zionists couldn't stomach America owning the Gaza Strip or West Bank either. They say that they're going to let these, you know, build these people nice new homes somewhere. There's about 3 million refugees from Palestinian territories in Syria, Lebanon, and Georgia that have been, Jordan, that have been there for 50 years in the same refugee camps. They're not building them nice homes. They're not letting them go back to anywhere. It's a complete lie. And to see Donald Trump saying, you know, the Gaza Strip is a hellhole, whilst he's sitting next to the man that made it that. Trump is actually trying to destroy, ironically, organisations such as, you know, the human rights organisations and the International Criminal Court, whose entire ethos was set up in response to the genocide of Europe against the Jews. They're now actually at a point where that's an inconvenience. And all of this is in opposition to the rest of the world, including decades of work making allies out of people like Saudi Arabia and Egypt, who are wildly rejecting this plan. And now Trump is actually saying that we're going to withdraw millions, probably billions in aid from those countries. Another reason why America cannot be trusted anymore with being the well, it never could, but being the policeman of the world, when they're so close to having someone like Trump in power to just use this stick to ethnically cleanse a country. And in Australia, we've got this position. Do we stand by two nations alone, which is America and Israel, or all of our other allies? And what's right? I mean, they're actually being honest for once and saying the quiet part out loud. And if you want to see how hypocritical all of this is, ask America to take the Palestinians in and see what answer you get. They just want to expand the refugee camps that already exist in other countries and push those people out, which is ethnic cleansing and genocide. And if you really want to push the button, ask them if they would take the Jewish population of Israel into America, because they will refuse, just like they did at the end of World War II, just like the Europeans did at the end of World War II, despite the fact these people were Europeans. The Jewish population were Europeans going back centuries. And Europe and America, including the UK, broadly rejected having them, which is why they sent them all to Israel in the first place.